Alright, so welcome to the garage. I'm going to talk about training zones and how to train on a treadmill today. So here's the garage, here's the treadmill setup. You'll notice I have a pool noodle here, and that is to stop one of the many types of disasters that can happen from skating on a treadmill. So don't go out and buy a treadmill just because I told you to try this. This is a 20-year-old treadmill, and it's okay if it breaks from all the crap I'm doing to it. So yeah, the pool noodle stops you from going into the crevice. Highly recommend it. It's good just for your mental aspect too. Gives you a good thing to avoid. Now also, another thing with the treadmill is when you're standing on the treadmill, if you try turning while you're holding these handles, it's going to pull the belt off of the treadmill. So don't do that. Yep. And then the other thing with training on a treadmill, right? If we're on a flat road, 90% of our resistance is wind and 10% is rolling resistance. Now, obviously, there's no wind on the treadmill, so you're going to get no exercise at all if you try skating on a flat treadmill. So I raise it to 10%. This is nice. I can ride slower and is less twitchy, which makes it less likely for the fall down. So just as an example, let me get started here. 6 miles per hour. It's kind of a fun speed. Start the treadmill up. So the only times I try to touch these handles is when I need to switch my legs. And I usually switch every 1 or 2 minutes. So I just plop over and I switch those legs. It's nice because I have this TV/computer up here where I can watch TV or whatever. If it's rainy outside, at least I have that as a consolation. So going on to the physics and training zones of this, I made a little calculator and program figure out your watts equivalent, so how much energy you're outputting. So for example, on this chart, if you're going 6 miles per hour on a treadmill of 6%, it's roughly equivalent to 14.2 miles per hour in the real world with wind resistance. Download this on our YouTube channel if you want to use these training zones for yourself. Next, we have the equation I use. Power. So power refers to the energy being exerted only towards the forward momentum in this case. Flailing your arms, that doesn't count. So just you're pushing. Don't think about it too hard. The wind is the first part of the equation. And we have our CDA here, which is our coefficient of aerodynamic drag. Treadmill, it's 0, so that part of the equation goes away completely. And then we also have our gravity. It's our rolling resistance plus slope times mass times gravity times our velocity. Pretty simple. A good example of this where you can compare watts, at 17.7 miles per hour, the pace that Paul and Jeff set the marathon world record, that's roughly equivalent to 200 watts. Now that's averaged over the time period, not just when they're pushing. So yeah, 194 watts at that very second when they're pushing. If you're going up a 5.3% slope with no wind resistance, something like Elk Mountain, you'd have to be going at 11.2 miles per hour for an hour and a half to be doing a similar effort to Paul and Jeff's marathon world record. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, continuing, you might be asking, do watts really correlate to your exertion? Isn't there some sort of factor that might make it different at different speeds? Well, I did a regression of about 100 different rides around a flat test track where there was no headwind, since it's a circle. And the correlation x-axis as speed increases 10 to 17 miles per hour, as your heart rate increases, is exactly proportional to this orange line, which is the watts you're producing. So roughly speaking, your exertion level correlates exactly with the watts you're outputting, more or less. But yeah, you could theoretically train on a skateboard using an accelerometer and a wind sensor and a speed sensor and do exact wattage training just like on a bicycle, where you can train at 98% of your maximum threshold and keep it right on that line, and then your training would become a lot more efficient. Yeah, so I think that's it. Don't hurt yourself. And don't tell anyone I told you to try this. If you want to check this out, I'll post the Excel, but it runs on VBA code, so it might not all work if you don't have the extension.